So when do you first remember learning about First Nations issues in school?
Given I'm approaching 50, the first time, no, I'm not making it up here, the first time I used to have textbooks, this is pre-1992 Marbo, we used to have textbooks that told us that the Aboriginal people were happy that the British were here. It was still, so that level of colonial discourse was still there in primary school.
Right, so do you think the current education system has enough awareness for Aboriginal issues at the moment?
Given I'm a history teacher, I can probably answer that one quite well. It does. It's embedded in everything. I'm from New South Wales originally, so I can't speak for VCE, but I imagine it's the same down here. It's embedded across everything you do. But whether that transfers across outside of the school setting, I'm not 100% convinced.
And what's one thing that you've learned about Indigenous culture that's really resonated with you?
The thing that's been hitting home recently with the Voice referendum, I was thinking about this yesterday, that Aboriginal people managed this land for 60,000 years and haven't messed it up, and yet there's ads in the New York Times today about how Australia's messed up, climate and whatever else. So in 200 years, European occupations managed to damage the continent, and they managed it for 60,000 years. So that kind of puts it in perspective of who's civilised, who's not.
And last one, with the upcoming referendum, do you feel satisfied with the media coverage from both sides?
Given I'm a journalist and doing a PhD in media and comms, that depends on. I'm not satisfied, no. Has the No campaign run a good media campaign? Yes. One of my students told me yesterday that they noticed on TikTok and Insta that there's a lot of fake accounts with user 487. So the discourse they're getting on socials is very much the No campaign. So no, I'm not satisfied with it, but it's a democracy. So
thank you so much. Much appreciated.
Now you're at uni, do you feel your university studies have incorporated enough awareness around it for you?
I don't know if doing an acknowledgement of country at the start of every class is my idea of celebrating culture, but rather recognising which is important.
Yeah.
But I don't expect to do professional communication and be constantly learning and celebrating Indigenous studies.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it can be incorporated more throughout the course, definitely.
Cool. Do you feel educated enough around the upcoming referendum?
Yes, personally, but I think that on the side of the Yes campaign, they are not trying to educate the right people.
Yeah.
Preaching to the converted, you could say.
Yeah. And do you feel like media coverage on both sides of the Yes and No campaign, like how do you think it's being portrayed?
I would say fairly even.
Yeah.
If you're looking at the right places, there are plenty of unbiased news sources. And of course, in every electoral campaign, there's going to be a lot of left-wing propaganda and right-wing propaganda from certain media places.
Perfect, thank you.
All right.
Amazing.
So when do you first remember learning about issues for First Nations in school?
Funny enough, I'm a teacher now. We do teach that now, but I don't remember learning it when I was younger.
Yeah. Do you think currently the education system is doing enough to raise awareness for Indigenous issues?
I think it's better than it has been, but I still think there's a few things that they're not covering, like a lot to do with like yes and no referendum, stuff like that. They're not really touching on a lot of that, even in like the upper primary school levels, which I'd like to see them sort of doing. We are looking at things from like Indigenous point of views, what it was like pre and post colonisation, but the gaps in student knowledge getting to grade 5, 6 is still quite large.
Yeah. Do you personally feel educated for the upcoming referendum?
I've read both the yes and no referendum, I've read the whole pamphlet and stuff like that, so I know enough about it to vote what I think is correct. But to have like a full debate about it or something like that, I feel like I'm not an expert at it, but I know enough to vote on it.
Yeah. So generally, do you feel satisfied with the media coverage for the referendum?
A lot of my media comes from what I want it to be through my phone and stuff. I don't really look at much of like common news or anything like that, like Channel 9 and that, so I'm not sure what they're doing. But a lot of what I've seen kind of points out the difference between the yes and no votes, so I've seen a bit about it.
Yeah, no worries, that's all. Thank you very much.
Thanks. Thank you, appreciate it.